Hey guys. This is part 4 of What If Naruto Became the Prince of Olympus. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. There was too much lemon, so I had to change the words. Chapter 25. No, Naruto, I'm too sore. Caitlyn, sharp, as naked as the day she was born, her body covered in sweat and tiredness could be seen on her face, cried out, and she tried to crawl away with her weak legs and hands. Walking behind the poor girl was a human-shaped devil with bright blonde hair and blue eyes, wearing a smugly grin on his face as he easily caught up to the crawling girl. Ufufu, don't try to run away, my beautiful queen. Of course, the devil we was talking about was Naruto Uzumaki, the Prince of Olympus, also wearing absolute nothing to hide his muscular body. A week had passed since Naruto and Caitlyn started their not-so-secret relationship to the godly world below. The two were literally madly in love and spent their times around each other whenever they got a chance. Artemis was extra busy lately, and Aphrodite said she wanted to self-training on her own for some times, in order to surprise him, so Naruto gave her a week of doing anything she wanted, giving him more times with his beautiful girlfriend. So at day the two went to the studio, giving their best in every Ring of Fighters footage before going on a secret date as soon as the director let them go. Naruto took Caitlyn all the places he could think about, from fancy restaurant to a simple ramen stand, Hestia's ramen stand, or from theme park to a simple game center. The blonde could even already say that going on date with his girlfriend was one of the best times of his life, as he had a lot of fun with her. Then, when the two of them arrived at Caitlyn's apartment, it was time for something more intimate. However, it wasn't like Caitlyn didn't enjoy sex with Naruto, but no matter how she tried to push herself, the girl could never keep up to his unholy amount of stamina. Even after going at it straight from the night to the next morning, Caitlyn could hardly see any tiredness from her boyfriend, which completely horrified her because she could barely walk the next morning, despite Naruto tried to be as gentle as he could. As Naruto got on her and wrapped his strong arms around her waist, Caitlyn could feel his fully erect 11 inches pressed against her ass. Caitlyn yelped slightly in shock when Naruto lifted her off the bed and twisted their body around, throwing her back to the head of her queen-sized bed on her back. To her surprise, he didn't go on the kill like usual but grabbed her knees, spread her legs and shot his body forward, throwing his face into her crotch. Hien, Caitlyn moaned out when Naruto's lips pressed against her other lips, starting to eat her out gently, serving her with his mouth and tongue. Naruto! Pleasure washed over her spines, making the annoyed soreness disappear. Suck harder, you're so good at this. Caitlyn couldn't help but wonder how could Naruto become so good at cat eating like this. Maybe because after so many times slurping up noodles from his favorite ramen. Caitlyn arched her back and grabbed onto Naruto's hair, crying out in pleasure as Naruto bit on her clitoris gently. Pulling back, he gave her cat lips a long and wet lick before ramming his tongue inside her cat, playfully teasing her. Naruto just loved the taste of her love juice on his tongue. Gulping it down his throat only made him wanted more. So Naruto began to roughly eat her out, thrusting his tongue rapidly past her cat lips, making Caitlyn's eyes snapped wide open in pleasure. I'm coming! Caitlyn, her back bended upward, and cried out and cummed hard into Naruto's face, drowning him in her love juice. Naruto grinned smugly at his handiwork before opening his mouth, trying to gulp down as much as possible. When Caitlyn's orgasm finally ended, Naruto crawled his way up her body and looked into her beautiful eyes. They stared at each other for a moment, with Caitlyn breathing hardly. Naruto's hand gently went up to cup her face, tracing his thumb on her cheek before bringing their face together in a loving kiss. I love you, Naruto, she whispered with a smile, staring up at him. Love you more. Naruto grinned at her and kissed her softly on her lips. His free hand grabbed Caitlyn's wrist and brought her hand toward his raging hard member. You did all that just for this, didn't you? Caitlyn asked, flicking his nose playfully. Ah, you know me so well, Naruto joked, at the same time gently pushing Caitlyn down with his hand on top of her head, getting the young woman on her front. Caitlyn gulped slightly as she stared at Naruto's tool, the object that sexually abused her almost every night. At its hardest state, his tool was 11 inches in length, and as big as her forearms, and she didn't want to get to his testicles. Caitlyn didn't know how he could get so big at such a young age like that, as his diet was completely unhealthy. Genetically, perhaps. Nonetheless, Caitlyn quickly got to work in hope that she could somewhat wear him out. Despite her protests, Caitlyn loved to make love with him and wanted to satisfy her boyfriend in the best way she could. Naruto sighed in satisfaction as Caitlyn wrapped her lips around his length, feeling her tongue licking sensually at the underside of his member and paying extra attention to his cum slit. Caitlyn swallowed more and more of his length, using her hands to stroke the parts she couldn't get into her mouth yet. Caitlyn then pulled back, leaving only the bulbous head of his member inside of her mouth before sucking in the flared head of her boyfriend's prick, staring up at him with big blue eyes. Caitlyn then restarted to work inch after inch into her mouth. Naruto groaned in pleasure, as he felt the hard head of his knob bump against the back of her throat for a second before he felt her muscles work and his pricks slide down into her gullet. Dear fat god! Naruto stopped himself at the last moment. Caitlyn, you're getting good at this, he moaned, gently thrusting his member forward, watching his girl deep throat him. Caitlyn was still trying to get all of his down her throat, knowing that she shouldn't push herself too far cause she still value her life. His moans increased even further when Caitlyn hummed softly around his prick, winking at him before moving her head back and forth, fucking her own throat with each movement, alternating between going as deep as she could and swirling her tongue around his member head as she took a deep breath before plunging Naruto's fuck me back into her throat. Naruto gasped as she pulled off him, his prick covered in spit, her right hand continuously stroking his member. Now let's. But Naruto stopped dead on his speech and his face became as pale as a ghost. Naruto, what's WR, UMGH? Caitlyn didn't get to finish her question when Naruto suddenly grabbed her head and pushed it down his member, going nearly 9 inches down her throat much to Caitlyn's shock. Her hands moved around wildly and put onto his abs, trying in vain in pushing him off her. Nothing, Caitlyn, just keep sucking, he said to her, because appeared in front of him just a few seconds ago was an Iris message and the person who was at the other side of the line was none other than Artemis, the goddess of maidens herself. She was freezing in utterly shock, her mouth dropped freely in shock, her eyes as wide as dinner plate, and was giving him the what the fuck is going on look. Then, after a moment of shocking, Artemis finally regained her composure and, much to his shock, a massive blush appeared on her face, becoming even darker than the color of her hair. This, in his opinion, was the cutest thing he had ever seen from the cold and emotionless immortal huntress. The magical link then shut down immediately after that. Aphrodite was having the final day off before she faces against Naruto, which would be tomorrow morning. The love goddess was pretty confident at this time. She would be able to get his forehead protector and get the kiss she was waiting for. Plus, she got a trump card up her sleeves now and it would definitely surprise Naruto. Aphrodite couldn't help but giggle when she thought about what would happen afterward if turned out Naruto was the love of her life. When it came to love she was never wrong, and by now she was 100% sure that Naruto was the one, her true love. She was in love with Naruto. Though she would feel surprised if she wasn't that he was kind, caring, powerful and not to mention very handsome and attractive. Aphrodite could barely imagine what she would do to those muscles of him when she finally got her hands on them. She didn't care if he got a mortal lover, because sooner or later he would become a god and they would be out of his life soon enough. She would be the only female who got eternity with him. Aphrodite carefully put vinculum under her bed and fell backward on the soft surface. After she confirmed that Naruto was the one, she would have to work with extra effort to raise her own position in his parents' eyes, as she wanted to have Zeus and especially Hera's blessing, not at the one who was going to marry their son but the one who he was in love with and madly love him back. Aphrodite! Aphrodite was cut off her own train of thought when someone suddenly kicked open the gate of her palace and stomped in without her permission, at the same time crying out angrily. Intruder! Aphrodite stood up and cried out. She didn't feel surprise in the slightest when the one who randomly busted into her house turned out to be Artemis, her arch-rival. It was you, wasn't it? Artemis asked with her hunting knife brought and about to press against Aphrodite's throat, but to her surprise the blonde-haired grabbed her wrist and twisted roughly, making her drop the knife. What? Aphrodite glared at the goddess of the moon, completely unaware of what she did. What do you want now, Artemis? You're the one who is influencing Naruto Uzumaki, aren't you, Aphrodite? Artemis asked through her gritted teeth, snapping her hands away from Aphrodite's grip. Because even though he was just a typical male, I don't believe that he would lower himself down the level of a rapist. There was a massive blush on her face, and as much as she didn't want to admit it, the blush was because of Naruto's godly body was still lingering on her mind. What? What are you talking about? Of course Naruto can't. Aphrodite then froze. Wait a minute, are you telling me that Naruto and Caitlyn are having sex right now? She asked, nearly cried out in shock. Yes. The auburn-haired goddess nodded, crossing her arms underneath her chest. Firstly, last time I checked Artemis, when it comes to Caitlyn Sharp and Naruto Uzumaki, my power is completely useless, Aphrodite said. Secondly, how did you know this? Surely you're no goddess of sex. I called him with Iris' help, because I want to have a spar tonight, Artemis pointed out. When the link was connected, first thing I saw was… Artemis stuttered, her blush darkened even more, making Aphrodite to look at her in amusement. Was naked, and his hand forced Caitlyn's head down his member, Artemis cried, making Aphrodite wince. It called a member genius, Aphrodite said. So, he is rather forceful, how nice. Unconsciously, Aphrodite rubbed her legs together. That's not my point. He is raping a girl down there, and if it wasn't your handiwork, then I have to stop it. Artemis summoned her hunting knife back to her hand and about to turn around when Aphrodite suddenly stopped her by placing a hand on her shoulder. As much as I want to do so too, Artemis, I don't think it is a good idea, Aphrodite said. Also, he is not raping her, he is making love with her. I doubt someone like him would do something so downgrade like that. She was the goddess of lust, yes, but in her opinion the worst kind male out there was the ones who forced themselves on women. It's perfectly fine for couple in love with each other like them, so a loveless one like you would never understand, yeah. Artemis winced disgustingly. I need to tell him about the spar tonight. How the Hades can I tell him without looking at their intimate moment? There is something called cell phone, pup. Aphrodite snapped her finger and a pink iPhone appeared in her hands. Here, I got his number right there for you. She dialed Naruto's number and gave the phone to Artemis, who took it and pressed it against her left ear. What are you doing? Artemis asked in annoyance as Aphrodite also pressed her ear at the other side of the phone, standing extremely close to the moon goddess. I want to hear her moan, so I will know just how much pleasure he can bring me when we date. Aphrodite giggled, making Artemis groan in frustration and about to shove her off when suddenly she heard his voice. Aphrodite, now is not the time. Naruto gritted his teeth, saying with the lowest volume so Caitlyn, who was nothing but a moaning mess underneath him, wouldn't be able to hear their conversation. It's me, Uzumaki, Artemis said blankly into the phone. Naruto, who are you talking to? Caitlyn asked through moan. Aphrodite couldn't help but wolf whistle rather excitedly. She could hear those moans and the sound of flesh hitting flesh, which, showing that Naruto had to be jumping her pretty fast and powerful to be able to create those noise. Oh, hey sis, Naruto said cheerily, rather nervously to Artemis. Sis, now listen, you damn rapist. Artemis cried out in anger, but Naruto quickly cut her off. How have you been? He asked with the same cheery tone. He is acting, Aphrodite told Artemis. When you're dating a girl, especially when you're fucking them, the last thing your partner wants to know will be you talking to another girl. I don't want to know that freaking thing. Artemis winced in disgust but cooperated with him nonetheless. No, I'm not fine, little brother. I'm actually really pissed right now. Really? I'm good too. Caitlyn suddenly wrapped her arms around his neck to bring herself up, kissing and nipping on his neck lovingly while he pounded into her tirelessly. What do you call me for, sis? Need some help with training? Yes, me, tonight at Yellowstone Park, Artemis said curtly. I will crush you under my feet. And she threw the phone back to Aphrodite after shutting down the connection. I will let you try. Naruto smirked and threw his phone away, snaking his hands down her ass and focusing on giving his girlfriend yet another incredible experience of her life. You didn't tell me you have a sister, Caitlyn said between moans, falling back to the bed on her back and give Naruto a full access to front body. His hip never continuously pounded into her, actually managed to punch past the entrance of her womb. Half-sister, actually, Naruto said, lowering himself down her chest and grabbed her boobs, lovingly playing with the large mounds. Well, she is my father's daughter with another woman. Oh, is that so? Caitlyn smiled before saying, Don't you know that I'm also a stepdaughter? What? Naruto asked, buried deeply inside of her. My father fell in love with my mother some time after he married with Susan. Caitlyn then made a frown. But I never get to see her. I heard from my father that she left shortly after the day I was born. This was actually pretty familiar to Naruto. If he didn't know any better, he could swear that Caitlyn Sharp, his girlfriend, was a demigod. Her beauty was abnormal, but it wasn't like Aphrodite's sexual beauty, but a more gentle kind of beauty, like his mother. She was also kind and very caring, very warm like his Aunt Hestia, not to mention she actually loved to eat vegetables and almost anything related to it that she called healthy. He heard that among the Olympians, there was a goddess who loved to eat vegetables, and that would be the goddess of harvest. Demeter. This girl got almost all the characteristics of his mother and his aunts. Wait a minute. Hey, why did you stop? Caitlyn said with a cute pout, buffing her cheeks. Go satisfy yourself quickly so I can rest. Oh, sorry, Kate. Naruto smiled down at her before kissing her on the lips. My bad. He raised his hip, pulling his member out until only the square head of his member left before thrusting inside as hard as he could. Once again he made Caitlyn climax for who knew how many times that day. Naruto, fully geared up with his shinobi gears, stood waiting with his arms crossed across his chest inside Yellowstone National Park, waiting patiently for Artemis to arrive. For some reason, he got a feeling that he would get one hell of a battle tonight. Artemis' pissed-off voice promised him that. 10 minutes after his arrival, he heard the sound of something flying with amazing speed on the sky. Looking up, his eyes widened when he saw an entirely silver chariot, pulled by 4 golden reindeer with silver horns. It reminded him Santa Claus' chariot. Artemis then made herself known by jumping off the chariot and landed gratefully down to the ground. Artemis was in her young adult form, with silver bow in her hand and quiver full of arrows on her shoulder, hunting knife strapped to her waist. Artemis, Naruto greeted the goddess. Uzumaki, Artemis greeted back with a smirk. Ready to eat the dirt? She pulled out her 2 hunting knives and took a stance. I will make you pay for raping that young woman. Rape? Wait a minute, we were making love. Naruto defended himself, but it was too late. Artemis leaped forward so fast that her whole body became a silver blur. But it wasn't anything Naruto couldn't see. Quite opposite, actually. As quick as lightning, Naruto pulled out his kunai and went into Sannin Moto to make sure that he could counter her godly strength. Raising both of his hands, Naruto used his weapons to block all of Artemis' blurring attacks. Sparks appeared every time knives clashed against kunais. Artemis wasn't the only one that got better with each spar they took. Even though he won every fight, Naruto still learned by looking at Artemis' skillful movement, and he could say that he finally caught up to her thousands years of experience. But still, Artemis wasn't an opponent you should take lightly. I think it's time I take thing to the new level. Naruto's eyes widened when Artemis' body suddenly glowed in an ethereal silver light, as silver auroras appeared around her body. She was going to transform. Oh, you're taking this too seriously. Naruto called out, but it was too late. Artemis finished her transformation in a bright flash of silver light. Her hair turned from auburn to pure white with blue and silver fringes. Her face became unreal beautiful, and her clothes changed to the elegant silver chiton, with red belt around her hip. Artemis opened her eyes and smirked at him. Her silver eyes glowed with power and as bright as the full moon above them. Before he could even react, an invincible smashed into his body with a force more powerful than anything had ever hit him, sending Naruto away helplessly on midair while crashing through several trees before ending at the front of a large boulder, which cracked because of the force. To his shock, despite his rock-hard skin, Naruto was actually in pain. Surprise? Artemis asked, walking toward him gratefully while holding the bow in her right hand. Her beautiful white hair swayed side to side in the wind. I will show you what a divine form of God truly capable of. The fact that you can see godly form make this even better for me. Naruto gritted his teeth, and for the first time since Artemis asked him to train with her, he became the one who charged at her first with his fists brought back. Artemis stood still, the small smirk never left her face all the while. Sannin Moto is no longer work on me, Artemis whispered, but Naruto could hear it very clearly. Remember that I'm the proud goddess of nature. To his shock, Sannin Moto deactivated itself because of the natural energy automatically left his body, leaving him powerless. Artemis then dodged his fist by grabbing his wrist and moved it to the side, crouching down and thrust her palm toward his chest. Gah! Naruto caught a mouthful of blood and felt his ears skipped a beat by her simple yet effective attack. Naruto was once again sent into the air and fell roughly down to the ground. How? He coughed, trying to push himself up. In this form, I have absolute control over nature, including its energy, Artemis said coldly and walking toward him. Now use your full power, she demanded strongly. Naruto gritted his teeth in frustration. He could barely believe what was going on. Naruto knew that godly form gave a huge boost in power to the gods, especially those among the rank of Olympians, but he couldn't believe that it was this much. Artemis actually cancelled his ability to use Sannin Moto and finished him in a single move. The blonde doubted that even without the control over nature, It would take her lesser than 5 moves to finish him. He was right all along. This would be one hell of a fight. How hard is your skin right now? Naruto asked, spitting blood out of his mouth, and used the back of his hand to wipe away what was left at his chin and the corner of his lips, feeling the organs inside of his chest healed up. Pretty strong. Why? Because I'm about to get serious too. To her excitement, Naruto's body busted into light as pure golden chakra coated his body. With thick black markings appeared on his body. He turned around fast enough to surprise her with an orange glowing orb in his hand. Artemis immediately brought out her bow and pulled the energy string back, making a silver arrow appeared out of nothingness. Naruto thrust his Rasengan forward, and at the same time Artemis used the tip of her arrow to counter it. A powerful shockwave was unleashed between Naruto and Artemis before wave after wave of force was created between Naruto's Rasengan and Artemis' arrow. It was clear to him that the arrow Artemis was holding was no normal arrow, because this was the first time he had ever seen something could stand against his Rasengan. Other than Sasuke's Chidori. You really think that this can take me out? Artemis screamed through the wave after wave of force and pulled her string back even further, making her arrow glowed in silver light. You're damn wrong, boy, and she released that arrow. Naruto quickly deactivated his jutsu and moved his hand to the side, dodging the glowing arrow at the last moment, luckily escaping the fate of losing his arm once again because Artemis' arrow completely destroyed a border like it was nothing. The Prince of Olympus took no other second to think just how powerful Artemis had become. By moving with the speed far greater than Artemis' reaction, Naruto appeared at the right side of the goddess, hovering on midair before striking her with his hardest punch. However, he didn't expect her to disappear before his fist could connect to her face. Just a millisecond after that, Naruto sensed a massive amount of killing intent behind his back. 2 hands shot out from his back and grabbed Artemis' wrists before she could strike him. The blonde turned around and delivered a roundhouse kick to Artemis' head. She disappeared once again. Naruto nearly forgot that gods could teleport in their divine form, so basically Artemis was as fast as, or maybe even faster than, he was right now. For the first time, Naruto found a fight to be truly entertainment. It had been years since his last real fight, and against Obito. Madara or even Kaguya wasn't so enjoyable. Consider their intention at that time. 3 arrows were heading to him, each glowing brighter than the last. Naruto's only choice was dodge, and dodge. Following the way of the arrow, he could see Artemis shooting arrow at him from behind a bush. The goddess of the moon smirked widely and spread her fingers, using only her thumb to hold the string. 4 silver glowing arrows appeared and readied. Try dodging this, she cried and shot the arrow. To his surprise, each of them flew at different direction, leaving silver auroras on their path toward him. Naruto was about to dodge them when suddenly, the arrows changed direction once again and all headed to the sky. The arrows disappeared into the cloud. Next moment, there was a bright silver light before hundreds or even thousands of silver arrows rained down the area. From the amount of energy he felt from each of them, it was clear to Naruto that each arrow was as powerful as a pack of C4 explosive. One of them was easy enough to dodge. Thousands of them were a big problem. Now he knew why she was so confident that he got no chance dodging them. For real? Naruto groaned when he saw Artemis appeared in front of him. Very real. And she kneed him hard in the stomach before turning around to punch him in the face when he used Kawarini. Groaning out in pain, Naruto crossed his fingers together and cried out a very familiar ninjutsu. Kagebushin no Jutsu. To Artemis' amusement, thousands of Naruto appeared in puffs of smoke. Half of them shot into the sky to stop the arrows while half of them charged at her. Number mean nothing, you know that? Artemis asked as she easily took out every clone coming at her. I can easily take them out, like how easy I will take you out. And don't you realize that those arrows are about to wipe Yellowstone Park away from the map? Clones, Naruto asked loudly. You're the goddess of nature, and yet, those arrows is special, was all her reply before creating an arrow in her hand to stab the nearest clone, then notching it back to her bow and shot straight through at least 2 dozen more. I can do this all night long, without even need to use half of my power, Artemis shouted. Just like I do, Naruto cried back. The next morning. What a fight. Naruto chuckled to himself as he was breathing hardly, actually standing on sheer willpower alone. You're just so powerful, he told the goddess standing in front of him, who didn't look any better than he was. You, Artemis breathed, were not fighting all out, weren't you? Her appearance flicked between her normal form to divine form, showing that she was also at her limit. Almost everything around them was destroyed. Naruto and Artemis fought all night long, leaving nothing but destruction to their surroundings. Aye, well, Naruto muttered, you as well, weren't you? Like you said, if we both go all out on each other, we will level this place, probably the whole country itself. Artemis admitted with a tired sigh. You're just too powerful and I am just too stubborn to give up. She charged forward again, but this time her speed was nowhere near the one she used last night. You don't have to prove anything, Artemis. Naruto reasoned as he dodged Artemis' punches and kicks. Unlike her, he got Kurama to pack him up. Artemis could take a few square of ambrosia or a gulp of nectar to regain her strength, and yet she didn't do it. Instead, she kept on fighting. Why are you keeping on fighting? He grabbed her wrist and pushed her backward. Not your damn business, boy. Artemis growled, her eyes half lifted, her form flicked once again. Artemis, all boys like you do is break maiden's heart, toying with their feeling before throwing them away like trash. Artemis said with her blue bangs covered her eyes. I have to be strong, to stand up for them. She leaped at him again. This time, Artemis' form fully flicked to her normal one and her right foot tripped over, making the proud goddess to fall forward. However, Naruto appeared beside Artemis and caught her. Gathering what was left in his chakra system, Naruto used Hyrule to teleport himself and Artemis to Olympus. Carrying the sleeping goddess on his back, Naruto walked toward her palace and pushed the door open. There he found her bed, which was also silver in color. Turning around and put the goddess down to the bed. Damn, Naruto muttered after standing up and look at Artemis' sleeping form. He could barely lift his eyes right now due to tiredness. She looked so peacefully sleeping like this, not trying to kill him or anything. Even Naruto couldn't believe that he actually wore some other gods than Aphrodite, who wasn't a fighter to begin without. Sighing to himself, Naruto turned around and about to teleport back to his house when suddenly his vision became blurry. His legs became shaky and all it took was a single step to finally drain him out. Naruto fell backward with his eyes closed. Naruto lost his conscience on the proud goddess of the moon's bed, with Artemis sleeping right next to him. Chapter 26 Prince of Olympus. He was dead. Naruto knew that he was dead meat. Waking up in the morning with the sunlight coming from Apollo's fancy sun chariot, his body arching a little from all the hard punches and kicks Artemis gave him. But it wasn't something that worried him. Nothing in this world could make the always cheerful Naruto Uzumaki worry, except the feisty goddess of the hunt who had an unhealthy hatred toward male, who also happened to turn around in the night and was now lying on his chest. Naruto glanced down slightly and saw the top of Artemis's head in the mess of her auburn hair spread out over his torso. Her head rested against the left side of his chest, arms wrapped tightly around his body and one leg put on his own. Naruto found it actually hard to breathe when the goddess of the moon made herself even more comfortable having him at her hugging pillow. Naruto did remember falling asleep last night, but not in this position, with the front of Artemis' body pressed tightly against the left sides of his body, her modest breasts squeezed between them. He needed to get out of this before she woke up, or else he would be a dead meat. Naruto thought about using Kawarimi to get him out of Artemis' bone-crushing hug, but failed when he realized that he couldn't move his upper body because of Artemis' powerful arms. When he started to consider using Sanin Moto, his movement, even if it was small, woke Artemis up from her sleep. Shit, Naruto cried out in his head when he realized that Artemis was beginning to wake up. The goddess' head moved up a little, looming around the room with a tired look in her eyes. Artemis could remember losing consciousness after the intense fight against the Prince of Olympus, which for once she didn't feel ashamed for losing to a male. She wasted too much power in the normal attacks, actually thought that it would be enough to take out the blonde, but once again, he surprised her by proving her wrong. She would never admit it. She lost fair and square last night, but she really enjoyed the fight with Naruto. Artemis could always find a lot of excitements from sparring with Naruto, if not wanted to say from being around him. When two fighters crossed fists with each other, they came to understand each other more than anything. She was wrong when she thought Naruto was just like any males. From the way Aphrodite was acting, she could say that Naruto truly loved Caitlyn sharp, not playing around with the girl like all of his brothers and especially father. Artemis couldn't help but sigh in satisfaction. This was one of the few times in the history she found a boy so different from others, and she truly treasured that. However, her eyes widened slightly when she saw the pillow she was so comfortable hugging. She didn't have a hugging pillow to begin with, not after fully matured and lived separated from her beloved mother. Her eyes widened in horror when she recognized the black pant with orang stripes, bandage wrapped around his right thigh to strap a kunai porch to his leg. Her head snapped around so fast that Naruto could barely believe possible, coming to face with Naruto with her silver eyes as wide as dinner plates. or as wide as the moon in a full moon night. She then realized that her position was rather intimate with him, with her hand wrapped around his body and her leg laid on his mid-thigh, body dangerously close to him. They looked at each other for a moment before Naruto managed to break the uncomfortable moment between them. Hey. He greeted her with a nervous smile. Did you have a nice SLE? KYH. The next thing he knew, he was thrown into the nearest wall with so much force that his whole body broke through it, landing roughly on the ground outside of Artemis' palace. Shit, Naruto got up to his feet and saw Artemis transformed into her true form, bow in hands glaring murderously at him. How dare you violated me while I was sleeping? Artemis roared and shot the arrows at him, which he dodged because all were aiming at his crotch. Die! 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 Naruto did the only logical thing for any male in this situation. He ran. Chapter 27. Naruto stomped into Aphrodite's palace, believing that this would be the only place in the world Artemis wouldn't think about trying to search for him so that she could cancel his ability of making children. He could hear her quick footstep outside. Naruto managed to create a few clones in order to distract the angered goddess, and one of them managed to catch her attention right after that. In a silver blur, Artemis leaped forward, following closely behind him while throwing the most horrible kinds of curse humanity could think of. Being chased after by an extremely angry goddess in the morning would be the last thing he ever wanted. Oh, good morning, Naruto. His head turned to the front and saw Aphrodite walking out of the bathroom with only a thin bathrobe covered her body, using a white towel to dry her hair. Hey. Naruto chuckled nervously after receiving the memories of the destroyed clone. He didn't think that Artemis would find out about his clones that soon, especially catching up to them. What happened? You look trouble, sensei? The love goddess asked with an amused smile. Nothing at all. Naruto shook his head rapidly. Last thing he wanted would be this talkative goddess gossip about what happened this morning. Is that so? Aphrodite nodded her head with a smile, throwing the towel away, letting her dried golden hair fall freely down her back. Naruto looked at the goddess of beauty and couldn't help but admit that she looked a lot more beautiful without the heavy makeups. Sure, she was as stunning as always, especially when she was only having a single bathrobe wrapped around her body, but her charms looked more beautiful and less forceful than before, almost as beautiful as Artemis in her true form. Aphrodite walked to her makeup's table and was about to set herself, in her opinion perfect in Naruto's eyes. However, before she could sit down, Naruto grabbed her Aphrodite's wrist, stopping her. Wait, he spoke up with a smile. I think you're perfect this way, Aphrodite was confused. I mean, you're a lot more beautiful without those makeups. Naruto pointed his hands to the table filled with makeup's equipments, making Aphrodite gasp in surprise. Trust me, they make your beauty look forceful. Why didn't you say it before? Aphrodite asked, a little louder than usual. She then realized her loud voice. Oh, sorry, she said sheepishly while sticking out her tongue cutely. Don't worry. Naruto grinned. Now dress up and get ready, you gotta promise to keep today, lady. Naruto was about to turn around when suddenly he saw a mischievous smile appeared on Aphrodite's face. Her hands then moved to the knot keeping the bathrobe on her body and released it at once. Naruto's body froze in shock. His eyes nearly bulged out of his socket when Aphrodite's body came into view. Now that he got himself a girlfriend, Naruto's point of view about women changed greatly. Now he could admit how beautiful they are and sometimes compare them to his Caitlyn. But even when the daughter of the most powerful company in the world was beautiful and incredible attractive, she still looked like a young little girl when compared to this goddess of beauty herself. Aphrodite's breasts were bigger. Not the biggest pair of tits he had ever seen, but still damn right impressive, making Naruto wonder how could she carry them around without back's problem, especially now that she learned how to fight. The shape, the color of her nipples and arrow loss were pink, almost impossible perfect. Her skin was spotless, having the color of healthy white, and Naruto didn't need to touch to know how soft and smooth it was. Going down was a perfect toned stomach, much toner than before thanks to the training she took with Naruto. Even gaining noticeable feminine muscles. Connected to that was a wide hip, bubble ass, and most of all Aphrodite's bald sacred place, her pink cat. The body almost every man in this world would do anything to get their hands on, and keep it at the property, almost. Oh, Naruto stuttered, taking a step back while pointing at Aphrodite. What are you doing? Put some damn clothes on, Afufu. Excuse me? Do you really forget that this is my palace? Aphrodite asked teasingly while folding her arms underneath her gravity-defying large tits, pushing them up to make them look a lot bigger and sexier. Like what you see? I got a girlfriend, damn it! Naruto turned around, trying not to pay attention to Aphrodite's body. Oh, a girlfriend who can't completely satisfy you. Naruto's head snapped up at that. Wait, were you spying on us? Of course not, I respect my teacher's time with his girlfriend after all. It's just that at the goddess of lust, I can always feel the lust from all the people around world, and if I'm not mistaken you're always high whenever nighttime came, Naruto. While saying that, Aphrodite couldn't help but caress her thigh together. The place between her legs were getting hotter and hotter. Just put some clothes on, Naruto said before declaring loudly and sagely. Because you're my student, you also have to learn to never break a promise. Alright. The love goddess giggled and snapped her fingers, summoning her training gears. You can turn around now. Naruto sighed in relief and turned around. His hand instantly shot up with the kunai to stop the celestial bronze blade of Vinculum, Aphrodite's sword aiming at his neck. Get ready, Naruto, Aphrodite said with a smirk. Today I will get that kiss, you can try. Naruto nodded, amazed at the burning determination in her eyes. Athena, Olympian's goddess of wisdom, was sitting on a simple wooden chair beside her working table inside her palace. She was going through various possibilities she could think about the task her father gave to her about Naruto's condition, from the books lying open on her desk. Athena couldn't help but admit that this was one of the most interesting tasks her father had given to her. Naruto Uzumaki, born from two normal, clear-sighted mortal bodies whose souls were Zeus and Hera. The method of creating Minato and Kushina's body was the same as how the Titan created the first human, made by the Fates and Hecate themselves. Naruto was a clear-sighted mortal, meaning that he could see past the mist, but no one, even Athena herself, would ever think that he was able to see godly form without getting killed. She didn't want to conclude anything when she didn't have much information about this. She would need to run a few tests Naruto both physically and mentally, in order to know the truth behind his ability. As if the world was on her side, the doors of her palace busted open and Naruto stomped in with a panic expression on his face. Athena stood up and looked at him strangely, only to see him putting a finger on his lips before hiding away behind the closed doors. Sister, are you in there? Artemis could be heard outside, and it was full of anger. Yes, what is it, Artemis? She replied calmly. Do you see Uzumaki anywhere? Athena's eyes glanced to Naruto slightly, couldn't help but think about what he had done to anger this goddess. After a second of thinking, she finally came to a conclusion. No, I do not. Okay, thanks for the help, Athena. The huntress quickly shot away, trying to find the real Naruto. Her tracking power couldn't work on Olympus, so she had to search for him in the traditional way. What did you do? Athena asked, crossing her arms together while looking at the blonde who was signing out in relief. Not me, boss did it. You're a clone. It wasn't a question. Yeah, thanks for the help, Athena. Clone Naruto stood up from his position and about to walk out. We need to keep her around as long as possible, you see. Wait, Naruto. Athena stopped him from opening the door. Come here and sit down. She pointed her hand to a chair next to her working desk. Clone Naruto was confused. As far as I know, clones are also capable of bleeding. She summoned a set of medical equipments on the table. To find out about the truth behind your ability to see divine form, I would like to run a few tests on you. Start with blood test. Okay then. It wasn't like he got anything important to do, and would prefer staying in this world a little longer. What's wrong, Aphrodite? Naruto asked as he punched her guts so hard that it made the goddess caught a lot of ichor out of her mouth. He was wearing his forehead protector, and since the beginning of the battle, which was about an hour ago, Aphrodite couldn't even get close, let alone touch it. She might have a chance if she didn't tell him to fight her serious. Where is that confidence you showed me at the beginning? He grabbed her head and pushed her back, charging forward and thrust his elbow into her stomach again, this time a lot harder than before. Aphrodite cried out in pain and fell down to the ground while holding her stomach, dropping Vinculum. She could barely see what was happening around her. Her vision was blurry and hard to focus, her body arching in pain from the ruthless attacks Naruto gave her. This was the first time in her life Aphrodite was in so much pain, even during the war with the Titans and the next war with the Giants. The bitch born to replace her managed to land a few hits on her, but not even that giant hit her as hard as Naruto. You know, when you fight Artemis, she is going to hit a lot harder than I am right now, Naruto said emotionlessly. He actually felt kind of bad for hitting Aphrodite so painfully like that, but in order to train her perfectly, she needed to know what physical pains felt like and learn to handle them. You want to give up? He asked, and almost instantly Aphrodite shot forward, trying to forget the screams of denial from her torn muscles. Naruto sidestepped and let Aphrodite fell forward. However, his eyes snapped wide open when he saw her foot coming toward his face, by throwing her right leg back. This was one of the things about her body that helped Aphrodite a lot with her training. It was the supple. Aphrodite could outstretch her body, moving her limbs around in amazing ways like a professional artistic athlete even before Naruto taught her to do so. But it wasn't something Naruto couldn't handle, even without his least strongest form Sannin Moto. Naruto grabbed her foot and twisted her ankle, hard. "Oh!" Aphrodite screamed out in pain and tried to struggle, but Naruto's grip was too firm. "Give up," he said and put more force to it. He knew that without Sannin Moto, the chance of him breaking her godly bone would be thin but definitely put her through serious amount of pain. "Never!" Once again, Aphrodite showed just how supple her body was by twisting around and pushed herself up with a punch aiming at his forehead. Naruto smiled and released her ankle, moving his head slightly backward to dodge her fist, which clearly aiming for his forehead protector. "I will show you just how much I want to be with my true one!" She shouted and viciously attacked him, forcing Naruto to go into Sannin Moto to block. "You! Why are you so sure, Aphrodite?" Naruto asked as he dodged his student's fist and countered with his own, so fast that Aphrodite couldn't react, and it went straight to her left cheek, leaving a dark bruise there. "He could be anyone, like Adonis." Naruto named out the only male in the history that Aphrodite ever truly loved with all her heart. "Or maybe Aries, or even my other brother Hephaestus, the one you didn't even pay attention to and cheated on him when you two were still married," he asked, catching her fist. "Why are you so sure it was me?" "Because you make me feel special," Aphrodite said softly. "I never felt like this before, not even with Adonis. You accepted and worked hard to bring out the best of me. You even cared for my children, when everyone didn't care much about them because of me." She attacked him with her other hand. "It made you special in my eyes, even if I am your loved one. What would happen if I don't love you, Aphrodite?" Naruto said while shaking his head. If Aphrodite's theory was true, then the last things he would ever want to do would be leaving both the woman he loved and the woman that loved him heartbroken. "I don't care," Aphrodite said strongly, pushing Naruto back several feet using a drop kick much to his surprise. "As long as my loved one is happy, I will feel happy. The love for my true love is unquestionably and unconditionally. I don't care how many women you love or sleep with, what matters is that I love you and want to see you live in happiness." Naruto was lost for words. He didn't know what to say. From how much she boasted about her true love, he knew that when Aphrodite found Hun, she would love him with all her heart, and he doubted that she would ever think about betraying him, but he would never think that she could go that far just to see him live in happiness. This goddess, there was a lot more about her he still didn't know. Never judge a book by its cover. Naruto couldn't help but admit how right it was. "I will get that forehead protector, Naruto, and I will prove to you that you are the one." To his shock, Aphrodite brought her hand out with her palm facing upward in a very familiar position to Naruto. His eyes widened even more when pink energy began to form around her hand and gathered together, swirling together at one point like a mini storm. "What the fuck?" Naruto cried out when a pink Rasengan formed in her hand. "You copied my technique?" "How?" He was shocked. As far as he could remember, he didn't teach Aphrodite the Rasengan, and did she know how to morph chakra in the first place? Surprise? Aphrodite cried out excitedly. "This is one of my trump cards against you, my own version of Rasengan." It was clear that that orb had more power than his normal version Rasengan, because from the feeling he was getting, Aphrodite created her own Rasengan using her godly energy, not chakra. He was right about Aphrodite didn't know how to morph chakra, but she did figure it out a way to create a Rasengan with godly power. Took me a while to hold it steady, but I managed in the end. The love goddess leaped forward with the Rasengan in her hand, dashing it on the ground. "Now prepare." "Shit!" Naruto raised his hand and created his own Rasengan, which was orange in the color and enchanted with senjutsu. "Rasengan!" Both cried out as pink and orange Rasengan clashed against each other. Both human and goddess cried out as they grinded each other technique against each other, trying to push each other back as the ground underneath then cracked and exploded, creating wave after wave of shockwave. "Gah!" Aphrodite cried out, and much to his shock, she was slowly pushing him back. "Shit!" Not even Artemis managed to push him this far. Naruto pushed more senjutsu into his Rasengan, and enlarged it much to the blonde's shock. It became gigantic in the matter of second. "Senpo, Rasengan." Aphrodite, knowing that she didn't have a single chance against it, made her Rasengan exploded. Naruto deactivated the technique as the explosion brought up a large amount of dirt and earth from the ground, blinding his vision. It is no use, Aphrodite. With Sannin Moto, he could feel her presence running around him. Naruto brought out his arm and swiped around, blowing the dirt away. However, his eyes widened when he saw Aphrodite shot down from above. Immediately he knew that she was in her divine form because of the ethereal pink light around her, as well as the skimpy purple and gold outfit she was wearing, barely left anything to the imagination. Her golden hair also grew longer, with a lot of flowers to decorate. Because Aphrodite was always in her true form, her true beauty didn't change that much but still managed to increase to the level of catching his breath. Just like Artemis. Trump card number 2-inch, Aphrodite shouted. Sexy tactics! And she removed her clothes, leaving herself completely naked. Her breasts jiggled erotically on midair as she slowly getting close to him. You like to copy my technique or something? He asked, impressed by how well she could fight unfairly like a kunoichi, using her sex appeal to her advantage but unimpressed by this technique. I will show you the real sexy technique. Naruto crossed his fingers with an evil smirk. Oiro Gyaka Harem no Jutsu. Kya! Aphrodite cried out in shock with a massive blush on her face when an army of naked boys, including the male Olympians circling around her, flashing Aphrodite their charming smile as well as showing their muscular delicious body to her eyes. Some even managed to get close to her and did some sexy calling gestures. The clones then disappeared, leaving Aphrodite completely shocked and shaking on the ground while Naruto was rolling on the ground, holding his stomach while laughing so hard that it was hurting her body. Unfair! Aphrodite cried out. It was so humiliating, like Naruto was laughing at the way she was in the past, which hurted her. You should know better than I don't play fair, Naruto said with a smirk, actually glad that Aphrodite covered herself up. Now shall we content? His eyes widened when power suddenly flared around her, creating a massive shockwave of power that knocked Naruto off his balance. Unfair, Aphrodite rose up to her feet, her hands gripping tightly with her bangs shadowed her eyes. Unfair! She looked up and cried out. The youngest daughter of Uranus, classified as one of the most dangerous Olympians, exploded with power. Like a nuclear bomb, everything in a 2 miles radius was engulfed in pure raw power from a goddess's power unleash. Naruto could only raise his arms to shield his face away from the explosion. He couldn't help but think how right he was when he chose Yellowstone Park at their fighting ground, or else this explosion would leave a huge amount of damage to any place in this world. After Naruto was sure the power explosion was end, Naruto released his hand and could see that his shirt were completely destroyed and his plants was nothing but rag cloth now. Barely be able to cover his bottom. A hand then suddenly shot out and grabbed his forehead protector, roughly pulled the thing off his forehead. Mine! Looking up, Naruto saw Aphrodite standing before him with his Heidi in her hands, glaring at him with anger clearly in her eyes. However, not a second later the goddess of love's eyes lost their beautiful color, as she immediately shut them up and fainted. Her features returned to her original form. Naruto quickly shot his arms out and grabbed her before she could fall to the ground. Looking around, Naruto couldn't help but feel a surprise by how much Aphrodite could destroy with her power alone. Everything literally disappeared from the Earth's surface. Clone Naruto waited patiently for Athena to return. After taking a large amount of his blood, the goddess went into her own lab and stayed in there for 3 hours. Probably went through any kinds of tests in this world, and probably some godly stuff. Then, the door was opened and Athena stepped out, carrying 2 small test tubes in her hands. One contained a small amount of red liquid and other with golden liquid, ichor no doubt. Athena sat down in front of him and sighed. Listen carefully, so the original can know about this, Athena said seriously. Do you know what this is? She asked, showing him the red tube. Blood? Naruto asked. My blood? Yes, Athena nodded her head. What about this? The goddess of wisdom brought up the ichor-contained test tube. Ichor? Naruto said. Yours? No, this is yours. Naruto's eyes snapped wide open in shock. 2 hours after coming to contact with my ichor. Athena then sighed. Normally, godly blood would completely destroy normal blood. Only the strongest kind of human has the blood strong enough to withstand the power of ichor. Only demigods' blood have this power. She looked at him. And yet you, what? He stuttered. What does this mean? My only theory is that you're becoming a god yourself, Athena declared. Impossible. I couldn't help but agree, But your case is very unique, Naruto. Athena turned back to the test tubes with a frown. I will need to run some more tests to have the final conclusion, she then said. But I think you should prepare for now. Naruto got nothing to say. He didn't know if he should feel happy about this or not. Then it snapped him, to the point he completely stood up from his seat. Caitlyn, that is the name of the mortal girl you're in love with, right? Athena asked. I think you should also prepare for that. When you became a god, you are bonded to ancient laws, so. Athena didn't need to tell him to let him know that. Naruto bit his bottom lips. He loved Caitlyn and didn't want to leave her, but this wasn't something he could control. Caitlyn Sharp was humming a soft tune while preparing a table for two, also preparing the fanciest kind of dinner she could. Naruto was going to come to her place tonight to have dinner with her, and Caitlyn couldn't help but giggle at the thought of what would happen afterward, as she also prepared her bedroom for a loving night together. Ding dong! Caitlyn's eyes widened slightly when she heard the sound of her bell. She didn't think that Naruto would come this soon. Coming, Caitlyn said loudly and walked to the door. Looking through the hole on the door, her eyes widened when she saw no one outside. Curiously, Caitlyn opened the door and looked around. She couldn't find anyone there. Strange. Caitlyn then looked down and widened her eyes when she saw a folder lying on the floor. Picking it up, the young woman opened the folder and moved her hand inside, grabbing what looked like a stack of pictures and pulled them out. Her eyes widened when she saw they were the pictures about Naruto and a very beautiful and attractive woman, almost unimaginable and unbelievable. It was you, wasn't it, father? Caitlyn muttered to herself as she moved through picture after picture. Then, her eyes widened once again and nearly dropped the rest of the pictures because of what she was seeing. It was Naruto, giving the beautiful woman a sword. Her mind automatically activated itself and nightmares she got a few nights ago flashed back. Now she remembered. The same woman who exploded and mentioned Naruto during her battle with the auburn hair woman, she had the same sword like the one Naruto was giving her. Chapter 28. At 5 o'clock sharp in the morning, Naruto's mind automatically woke him up from his sleep, as the Prince of Olympus slowly opened his eyes. Naruto was greeted with the familiar sight of his beautiful girlfriend, sleeping soundly with her back facing him, snuggling closely to his chest with his arms wrapped around her waist. He couldn't help but smile. He could get used to this. Hell, Naruto even thought about starting a serious relationship with Caitlyn, aka marriage, if things turned out well to them. The blonde knew that he thought a little too far ahead, considered the fact that the two of them only started dating with each other for a few weeks. But time wasn't something Naruto got at this timing. Last night, after the last of his clones dispersed, Naruto received some rather interesting information about his condition from Athena. He was becoming a god. How? Naruto didn't understand. But based on Athena, some of his erythrocyte was showing sign of turning into Ichor's erythrocyte, flicking between the color of red and gold for a few seconds before turning back to normal. Athena wanted to see him as soon as she finished with the blood she got from his clone, in order to run some tests on his real body to see that if he was really becoming a god or not. But this matter didn't concern him one bit. Naruto didn't care that if he was becoming a god or not, because he believed that he would always be himself, godly or not. However, what he was worrying about was his relationship with Caitlyn, as it could seriously affect the both of them. Naruto wasn't one to follow rules. He would love to break them if necessary. But because Caitlyn was immortal, this could seriously affect her. Naruto didn't know much about the ancient laws. As gods, both minor and Olympians were the only one who was taught from one of the friendly primordial gods. Until he fully understood the ancient laws, it would be a wise thing not to mess up them. But Naruto got a solution for this, even if it was almost next to impossible, because it had been a long time since the gods last grant this generous gift. He would ask his parent to turn Caitlyn into a goddess herself, or at least grant her immortality. Naruto wanted to be with Caitlyn. He didn't want to leave her or make her sad. The two of them was madly in love with each other. His sensing power allowed Naruto to feel that from his partner. It was a mutual feeling, something they both shared and greatly treasured. Leaving her right now would be the last thing he would want to do, and he doubted that Caitlyn wasn't feeling the same, all because of his condition. But this also meant he would have to reveal his true origin to his girlfriend, which wasn't that hard to begin with. Since they were both in love with each other, Naruto believed that there was no secret between them, dark or not. He would tell Caitlyn without a second thought, and hope that she would understand. Caitlyn's body then stirred slightly before turning around, facing him, and wrapped her arms around his chest tightly. The young woman buried the top of her head into the crook of his neck and released a soft breath, a small smile forming on her lips. Naruto smiled softly and planted a kiss on the top of her head, moving his right hand up and put it on her soft hair, stroking the beautiful golden lock gently. I can get used to this every morning, Caitlyn said softly, kissing Naruto on his neck. Yeah, me too. Naruto smiled and moved his body down a little, turning around so he was on top of Caitlyn with both of his hands at either side of her head, looking down at her with loving eyes. I love you more, Caitlyn said softly and let Naruto lower his head down and kissed her on the lips. After a few seconds of loving kiss, Caitlyn opened her lips slightly and let Naruto injected his tongue into her oral in a heat French kiss. Both loved the way their tongue was wrapping around each other. Lemon Aphrodite squealed out excitedly, so loud that everyone on Olympus could hear her high-pitched voice, while jumping around like a mad woman. I won! She screamed, throwing herself onto her bed, smashing her face against her pillow and screamed out as loud as she could. I won! She didn't remember much thing after she released her power, but she did remember the moment she yanked Naruto's forehead protector, which was lying on the table next to her bed, away from him. I won, she said happily, grabbing the forehead protector and looked at it with a loving expression. The time had come for her to prove to him that he was the one for her, and she was the one for him. There were so many things she wanted to do right now. Aphrodite actually thought about what she was going to do after she managed to get his Heidi beforehand, believing that those things were absolutely necessary if she wanted to start a very serious relationship with him. With that thought in mind, Aphrodite stood up from her bed, clicking her fingers to change her clothes to a more formal style of clothing before flashing to the second biggest palace on Olympus. Hera's palace, Naruto's mother's house. Hera! Aphrodite called out loudly, knocking against the door of Hera's palace. Hera, it's me, Aphrodite. She waited for a moment, as patiently as she could for Hera to answer her call. Aphrodite believed that she was in no rush. After all, Naruto left her a note saying that he would come to her palace tonight to keep his promise. Hearing the sounds of footsteps at the other side of the door, Aphrodite stood straight up and tried to keep her face as calm as possible. Not a second later, the doors of the second most elegant palace on Olympus was opened, and Hera made herself known to the goddess of love. Yes? Hera asked. What do you want, Aphrodite? You're going to go somewhere? Aphrodite asked, looking at Hera up and down since she was wearing a long, white dress, the kind of clothes she wore whenever she needed to go to important meetings. I'm going to visit my mother, Rhea, Hera said. What about you? Why are you here? She looked at the goddess standing before her suspiciously. Can I have, some words with you? Now she got nervous. Aphrodite knew that her reputation in Hera's eyes wasn't the best in the world. This could turn out very bad for her if Aphrodite wasn't careful with her words. Sure, come in. Hera nodded, stepping out of the way and made a path for her former daughter-in-law, allowing her to come inside. There, they sat down inside Hera's living room, with Aphrodite sitting on a long and Hera sitting opposite from her. The queen of the gods poured some hot nectar for her guests, keeping her face straight. Go on, I don't have much time. Hera spoke up first. Zeus is going to return any minutes, Hera. How should I say this? Aphrodite looked troubled. She actually didn't know where to start, so after a few seconds of thinking, she finally decided that she should go straight to the point. Hera, I'm in love with your son, Naruto. The queen only stared blankly at Aphrodite, which made the love goddess gulp nervously. I know. You do? It would be a surprise if you're not. Consider that you aimed for every son of Zeus, with me or not, hey? Aphrodite pouted, buffing her cheeks in annoyance. I changed, alright, sorry. Hera chuckled softly at that. Even thought it kind of hard to believe. I couldn't help but admit that you're a lot of different from the slutty daughter-in-law, who I lost count on how many times she cheated on my son that I used to know. Oh? Aphrodite smiled while swirling a strand of her curly blonde hair. She would take that as a compliment. Care to tell me? I must admit that I didn't spend much time around my son lately, Hera said with a longing sigh. But I am still watching over him from here, making sure that he is always alright and well. Like a stalker? It will call it a mother's thing to care about their son's well-being. She looked at Aphrodite. You should know it too, consider that you're also quite a mother yourself. It was one of the only things from Aphrodite that helped her gain some respect from the Queen of Gods. That was she cared deeply for her children, both immortal or mortal. I guess. I also noticed that while taking my son's training strangely serious, you had been trying to get into Naruto's pants every time you had the chance, which would be a surprise if you didn't. The goddess of love chuckled sheepishly, because it was the truth after all. Anyway, You even managed to figure it out the Rasengan, quite impressive to say the least. So, I guess you also know about him being my true love? Asked the blonde goddess. I'm not too sure about this, Aphrodite. What made you think that he is the one? Hera asked the same question Naruto asked Aphrodite last night. I'm not sure, Hera. I guess it is a thing you know. Aphrodite said softly. Unlike any other, Naruto is the first man to give me these strong feelings. I once thought that Naruto would turn out to be an easy target like any of my lovers in the past. Apparently he wasn't. All I can say right now is that I know Naruto is the one for me and we're both meant for each other. What about Caitlyn Sharp, the girl he is in love with? Hera asked calmly. Did you know that Naruto took after me more than Zeus? I know about that too. Once Naruto loved someone, he would be strongly in love with that woman and never think about betraying her, just like you. Hera nodded. But I am no longer care about it anymore. As long as my true love is happy, I will happy. Naruto probably doesn't hold any special feelings toward me, but until the day he finally loved me, I will continue to support him. Before, I would never think that those words could come out from someone like you, Aphrodite. Hera said, just think about this possibility for once, Aphrodite. What if he isn't the one? I'm sure of it, Hera. Naruto is the one. Aphrodite said firmly, like it was an absolute fact. Fine then, it wasn't like I could change your mind or interfere in Naruto's life. He is man now and he knows what to do and not to do. Hera sighed before saying, if things turn out well for you too, which I don't know how much years, decades, centuries it takes for him to finally fall in love with you, you have my blessing, Aphrodite. Almost instantly Aphrodite threw herself onto Hera and wrapped her arms around the goddess of marriage's neck, bringing her into one of the strongest bear hug in the history. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Like she just won the biggest prize in the world, Aphrodite cried out in happiness as she tightened the grip around Hera's neck, to the point it made the queen of the gods hard to breathe. Okay, enough of this. Hera managed a few words. Now release me at once. Aphrodite obeyed instantly. Hera, I still have one more favor to ask. Aphrodite said, bringing up one finger. And what is? Can I use your sacred bath? Hera looked at Aphrodite, both shocked and impressed. Caitlyn Sharp scolded quietly as she stood at the wayside in front of Four Seasons Hotel with her hand raised above her head, trying to catch a taxi in order to return to her apartment. She let her personal bodyguard, John, got a day off today, so no one was here to drive for her, and she did refuse her father's offer of calling his driver to drive her back to her apartment. She was here because she wanted her father to stop poking his hands into her life, especially spying on her love life and the love of her life. Caitlyn didn't feel surprised when her father said that he would never approve their relationship after Caitlyn told him about Naruto. Consider that her brother was just a nameless boy who was living in the middle of nowhere, working in a small factory to earn his living. She was so angry at her father that she literally slammed the door right in front of his face and left his hotel. But there was one thing that confused her. Her father was the one who sent her those pictures about Naruto and that beautiful woman. However, instead of seeing a sword in the picture, all he saw was Naruto giving that woman a bunch of roses. A bunch of roses? She saw a sword and her father saw a bunch of roses? Just what was going on? A taxi then stopped in front of her and Caitlyn opened the door to step inside. Please take me too. But she was stopped when she realized the one who was standing at the driver's seat with a lecherous smirk on his face. Hey there, beautiful. He turned around and said, remember me? Caitlyn didn't even have time to react because the man suddenly shot his hand out and grabbed her neck. All she saw before losing her conscience was his flames-filled eye sockets. Chapter 29. Caitlyn Sharp regained her consciousness by the feeling of cold breath breathed against her skin. Her eyes then snapped open in shock as she remembered what happened to Head. Fear soon took over her mind as she looked around and saw a dark-looking room, with her being hanged on the ceiling with both hands tied above her head by golden chains. Wah! Caitlyn stuttered in fear. She was captured and held in a place she didn't know where. Help! She shouted as loud as she could, hoping that someone could help her, but Caitlyn knew that she was trying in vain. No one can hear you here, little girl. Caitlyn gasped when the taxi driver, the one who captured her, stepped out of a shadow with an evil smirk on his face, his full of muscles form completely towering Caitlyn. This special room was magical. Not even Hestia would be able to find Caitlyn here. Why you? Caitlyn gasped in shock because she finally got a good look at his face. He was the same man who sneaked into her bus and tried to force himself on her if not for Naruto, who appeared in time to save her before this man could do anything. "Who are you? What do you want with me?" she asked, trying to put on a brave face. "Oh, I want to do everything with you, honey," the man said lecherously while ogling Caitlyn's body. "Last time, I got such a great opportunity, and you could have one of the best times of your life if not for that Whiskers punk." He spat with venom in his voice. "His name is Naruto?" Caitlyn shouted angrily. "And he is probably searching for me now," she said with a strong voice, not because she tried to make this man worry about the one who kicked him several feet out of a window, because she knew that Naruto was out there looking for her, and would come to save her in any second. "Oh, I know he is coming," the man said, as if he could read her mind. "Because I am waiting for little brother after all." "What?" Caitlyn said in shock. Oh, he didn't tell you, did he?" Aries chuckled. "Yes, girl, I'm Naruto's older brother," he said with a smirk before removing his sunglasses, revealing his flame-filled eye sockets. "I'm Aries, the Olympian's god of war." Caitlyn gasped in shock, her eyes as wide as dinner plate, staring at his flames-filled eyes. This man, he was a god, she didn't know why, but she couldn't deny the truth behind his words. He was Aries. Now everything was clear. "Then Naruto, the so-called Prince of Olympus," Aries laughed mockingly. "As if that weak punk is nothing but an insect under my feet, like any of you mortal." He then reached his hands out and tore open a large part of her shirt, as well as her skirt. Caitlyn cried out in fear as she was more or less completely exposed to this man. "He said I could use you against him and shouldn't ruin that pretty face of yours, but he didn't say I cannot have some fun with you," Aries said, licking his lips, and began to remove his pants. "You should feel honor, because you will bear a child of a god." "No! No! Please don't!" Caitlyn shouted, trying to get away, but the chains was holding her back. She was outright crying now when his pants finally dropped to his feet. "Naruto!" She cried in her head. She closed her eyes as tight as she could and braced herself. Tears never stopped flowing down her cheeks. She waited, and waited. "Motherfuck!" Caitlyn heard Aries curse out angrily and couldn't help but open her eyes. Aries was standing with his member in his hand, trying to get it hard by stroking it rapidly. However, no matter how he tried, his member was still as limp as jelly. "That bitch!" Aries cried out. One of Aphrodite's curses, no doubt about it. Caitlyn looked at him pathetically before a slight smirk spread out on her face. "Are you sure you are Naruto's brother?" Caitlyn taunted. "Because as far as I can tell, his member is bigger and longer than you, and definitely not a limp thick, not to mention he is totally more handsome." She humiliated him. "What did you just say?" Aries roared. "I'm a god! That mortal got nothing like me!" "Yes, I said it, limp member!" Caitlyn shouted back and was slapped across the face. The girl didn't cry this time. Instead, she spit blood out of her mouth and looked at Aries, a massive bruise on her cheek. "Not so confident now, aren't we?" she asked mockingly. "Fuck this!" Aries roared and grabbed Caitlyn's head, pulling her down near his member. "I will just use your fucking mouth then." However, before Caitlyn's face could get anywhere near his member, a pink heart suddenly appeared, and in a flash, something exploded in a pink smoke, sending Aries across the room before landing on the ground roughly. "Gah! Damn you, Aphrodite!" Caitlyn heard Aries cried out painfully in shock while holding his crotch, golden blood flowing out between his fingers. Caitlyn busted out in laughter when she saw Aries' pathetic form. At least, Caitlyn believed that the worst would never happen to her now. "Naruto, please come quickly," she prayed in her head. Later that day. "Caitlyn!" Naruto called out loudly while slamming his hand against the door of her apartment. "Caitlyn! Are you in there?" Now that he was worried, since this morning, he couldn't contact her at all, which was something very abnormal. Naruto started to get suspicious when he got no reply from her after sending her multi-texts, which Caitlyn always replied almost immediately. He grew even more worried when Caitlyn didn't answer his call. So immediately, Naruto flashed to the outside of her apartment, where he put a Hirishin mark in case he wanted to get to her apartment as quickly as he could. Naruto had been standing in front of the door of her apartment for 5 minutes now, and it looked like Caitlyn wasn't here. "Where are you, Kate?" Naruto asked worriedly and was about to go into Senin Moto to search for her when suddenly, he heard Hestia's voice inside of his head. "Naruto, the quest is in trouble," the goddess of the hearth said with a worried tone. "They need you now." "What?" Naruto asked. "What is happening, Auntie?" "Very good timing indeed," Naruto thought sarcastically. "Aries is attacking them. he got the Master Bolt and the Helm of Darkness within as well. Naruto widened his eyes in shock. Bastard, he muttered, inform the Olympians, Auntie, tell them everything, I will, now go Naruto. With that, Naruto disappeared in a flash of yellow, praying that his girlfriend would still alright after he got back from beating the hell out of Aries. A 6-foot wall of water, guided by Percy Jackson the son of Poseidon, smashed Aries full in the face, leaving him cursing and sputtering with a mouth full of seaweed. Percy took a leap before landing behind him with a splash and fainted toward his head. Aries turned around in time to raise his sword, but this time he was disoriented. He didn't anticipate the trick. Percy changed direction, lunged to the side, and stabbed Riptide straight down into the water, sending the point through the god's heel. The god of war roared out painfully, making the sea blasted back away from Aries, leaving a wet circle of sand 50 feet wide. The expression on his face was beyond hatred. It was pain, shock, complete disbelief that he'd been wounded by a mere demigod. It was as humiliated as getting wounded from Naruto Uzumaki. Aries limped toward Percy, muttering in ancient Greek curses, and Percy raised his sword, prepared for him. You! But he stopped suddenly when the boy he hated the most in the world appeared next to Annabeth in a flash of yellow, glaring at him. Naruto! Annabeth gasped and released a sigh of relief. You finally came. While Percy was handling the situation quite better than she thought, the Daughter of Wisdom knew that even the three of them put together wouldn't be able to stand a chance against a god, so her only option was calling for Naruto for help. Oh yeah, I got a score to settle with this guy, Naruto said, grinning evilly. Percy stepped back. He ordered loudly, and the son of Poseidon wisely backed off, running back to stand with his friends. Naruto, I know he is keeping the lightning bolt, Percy. Naruto raised his hand to stop him. As well as the Helm of Darkness, you know? Annabeth asked in shock. How? Long story. Naruto cracked his fist and stepped forward, pulling a Nornal and a Tri-Prongs kunai out of his dimension pocket. I will explain later. Naruto stopped when he was 20 feet away from Aries, who pulled out a large square of ambrosia and threw it into his mouth. The food of the gods immediately healed the wound at his heel and replenished his strength. So Aries, who is the lightning thief? Naruto asked with a smirk. Even if you're stupid, I doubt that you're stupid enough to break a few ancient laws just to start a war between our family. None of your damn business, punk! Aries roared, making Naruto raise an eyebrow in amusement. The god of war appeared to be angrier than usual, which may be because Percy managed to wound him. So I guess you probably won't hang those godly weapons out without getting your ass kicked, nay? Naruto raised his hand, gripping his kunais tightly. He needed to finish this fast, so that he could return to find his girlfriend. Behind him, the trio wisely backed off and found a clearing to hide behind. They all could feel a massive fight coming, unlike anything they had seen before in their life. I will shut that fucking mouth of your, punk! Aries scolded, but then a smirk made it to his face. But before we start this, how about I introduce you to a friend of mine? And he snapped his fingers. In a flash of red, Naruto's eyes widened in horror when Caitlyn appeared with her arms raised above her head, her wrists tied together by golden chain. Her usual well-taken hair was completely ruined, her face covered in bruise and cut, clothes torn and destroyed, revealing multi-cuts and scratches, even dark bruise as big as a fist. Caitlyn was unconscious, with red blood running down the corner of her mouth. Caitlyn! Naruto shouted with his voice full of anger and hatred. He then turned to Aries. You bastard! He was about to charge at him with the intent to kill when suddenly a massive boar appeared behind her. If I were you, I wouldn't do anything stupid, Aries said with an evil smirk. Damn you, Naruto gritted his teeth in anger. He knew about that dangerous boar. It was mentioned in Greek mythology multi-times before as Ares' sacred animal, which could instantly kill any human being just by crashing into them. So? How should we do this? Ares asked and rushed forward with his sword raised above his head. He then struck it down his younger brother's head, but Naruto already raised his own weapon to block Ares' sword. The Prince of Olympus gritted his teeth in anger. His attention was on Caitlyn. Ares wasn't very smart or a good fighter, but he was reckless and of course a mindless warrior. He could do anything to archive his victory. Naruto had to back down to the defensive line while thinking the best way to save his Caitlyn. He needed to make sure Caitlyn is okay before killing Ares for what he did to her. You drop your guard, little brother, Ares said evilly and punched Naruto on his face with his other free hand, so strong that it created a shockwave when his fist came into contact with Naruto's cheek. Naruto bit the inside of his mouth to stop the groan of pain. He wasn't in Sennin Moto, so basically a punch from a brutal god like Aries hurted a lot. I can't believe a weak punk like you managed to defeat me 2 times. Aries cried and slammed the flat side of his sword down Naruto's head. Who is the superior one now, huh? He laughed and kicked Naruto on his chin, sending the blonde across the field. Before Naruto could get up, Aries appeared above him and stabbed his sword down Naruto's left shoulder, making him cry out in pain as the sword completely passed through his body. His cry of pain soon woke Caitlyn up, as she looked around in shock. Nearly cried out in fear when she saw a gigantic boar standing next to her. Caitlyn's eyes then landed on Naruto, and this time she cried out in horror when she saw her boyfriend on the ground with a sword stabbed through his shoulder, pinning him down to the ground. Naruto! She cried out with tears flowing down to her cheeks. With her split lips it was actually hard to say anything, but she didn't care in the slightest. Please stop, please don't hurt him, she cried. Gah! Naruto cried out in pain when Aries twisted the sword around very slowly, grinning in satisfaction. Ha! Not so confident now, aren't you? Aries laughed loudly, summoning another sword and stabbed it down Naruto's other shoulder. He then lowered his body down and grabbed onto Naruto's spiky hair, pulling his head back roughly. Any last words for your girlfriend before I kill you? Naruto! Caitlyn sobbed, looking at Naruto with tears-filled eyes. Hey, it's alright, Kate, Naruto said with a weak grin. Everything is going to be alright, I promise. He smiled softly at her. Believe in me, my love. Caitlyn, while crying, couldn't help but nod her head. Enough of this! Aries shouted and summoned a third sword, bringing it down Naruto's head. Time seemed to slow down as Naruto prepared for his death, but in a matter of seconds, his eyes widened when he saw a flash of pink appeared above the boar, with the familiar scent of incredible strong perfume rushed into his nose out of nowhere. Naruto couldn't help but grin. He trained her well. When the sword was just millimeters from the back of Naruto's head, his body suddenly exploded in power as Kurama's chakra wrapped around his form. The explosion of power was so powerful that Aries and his swords were sent away from Naruto's body. Naruto shot to his feet. He didn't need to turn around to know Aphrodite just arrived with a pink Rasengan in her hand, twisting around in the air before slamming the swirling orb down the boar head. Rasengan! The goddess of love cried out as she grinded the orb of power down the boar head, giving the animal a free trip to Tartarus in the form of a storm of golden dust. You have my gratitude, Aphrodite, Naruto said gratefully, feeling the wounds on his shoulders healed up with the help of his partner. Don't thank me, it was your Aunt Hestia. Aphrodite smiled and turned to Caitlyn. Hey girl, she said cheerily, and removed the chain around her hand. Who are you? Caitlyn asked quietly, but she could recognize her by the unmatchable beauty. She was then released from the binding magic and fell down, and was caught by Aphrodite. I'm Aphrodite, Caitlyn gasped in shock. Your boyfriend's student. Aphrodite then winked at Caitlyn before turning to Naruto. The council know about Aries' treason action now, Naruto. His fate is now in your hand, you to decide. I understand, Naruto nodded emotionlessly, glaring hatefully at Aries. Take the 2 weapons and the quest out of here. Close your eyes, Caitlyn, Aphrodite said to the girl, and she wisely obeyed. In a flash of pink, the golden-haired women, Aries' bike and the quest disappeared. Damn! But Aries could never finish his curse, because Naruto appeared in front of him with a Rasengan in hand and slammed it into Aries' chest. Killing you right now will be too mercy! Naruto roared as he grinded the orb against Aries' upper body, tearing through his flesh and muscles. I will make you feel the same pain you did to Caitlyn! Naruto roared and sent Aries away in a massive tornado while crying out in pain. In a flash, Naruto disappeared and reappeared behind Aries' flying body with hatred planted on his face. However, before Naruto could attack, Aries unleashed his divine form. His body became a mass of muscles, standing at the height of 6'11". He was wearing the blood-red battle outfit of the ancient Sparta warrior, with the helmet covered his face, leaving nothing but his flaming eyes visible. He was holding a golden sword in his hand as well as a celestial bronze shield on the other. This form clearly screamed power. I will show you the pain, punk! Godly form Aries raised his golden spear to attack Naruto. However, he didn't expect a black orb appeared beside Naruto, and the blonde pulled out a long black rod from it, raising the rod to block Aries' sword. Much to his shock, when Naruto's weapon came in contact with his much bigger and sharper weapon, it broke through the sword like it was just mere dirt. His golden sword then crumbled into nothingness. Naruto raised his foot and kicked Aries hard in the chest, sending him away toward the sea in a powerful shockwave, and the god of war disappeared from sight in 1 second. Aries looked down, and his eyes widened in horror when he saw a massive gash on his chest, where Naruto kicked him. The god tried to regain his balance, but he could only cry out in pain when ichor poured out from his wound. Aries landed roughly onto the ground, dashing on the ground several times before finally stopped. He just sent Aries across the sea, to the nearest island, which was 9 miles with only 1 kick. Damn, I totally forgot how strong I am in this form. Naruto muttered to himself and shot into the air, flying toward the island. His chakra cloak now turned into a light-colored coat with a dark-colored bodysuit underneath that covered his torso, reached down his arms to the knuckles, and down his legs, stopping just above his sandals, which also changed color. It also had a light-colored circle where his seal was placed, as well as golden Magatama markings around his collar. The coat had the typical markings of the 6-path Senjutsu, a Rinnegan above 9 Magatama, on its back, and lastly 9 Godudama floating behind his back. No holding back? He heard Kurama asked inside of his mindscape. He will pay, was all his reply. Naruto lowered himself down to the ground behind Aries, who was shoving down mouthful after mouthful of ambrosia and drank as much as nectar as he could, trying to heal the massive wound on his chest as fast as possible. Not so tough now, aren't you? Naruto used the same taunt Aries used to mock him, the 9 Godudama floating behind his back. You think you're powerful? Aries asked hatefully, standing up with his hand gripping a spear tightly. You are just a mere mortal, a mere insect under my feet. He charged at Naruto. To think someone like you is a god. Naruto muttered before easily dodged his attack before sending a Godudama toward his left arm, completely destroyed it to nothingness. Gah! Aries shouted when he saw his entire left hand turned into dust. Like I said, Naruto said coldly, killing you right now will be too mercy. He grabbed Aries' shield and yanked it from the god's hand before slamming it into his face, breaking his nose as well as the front part of his skull. Please! Aries muttered, but it fell into dead ears. Shut up! Naruto roared and punched him hard in the face, creating another hand to grab him, stopping Aries from being sent flying away. Did you stop when she begged you? You sorry excuse for a god? He punched Aries multi times, harder and harder until the whole island shook with violent powerful shockwaves, which also created wave after wave on the ocean. Naruto threw Aries down to the ground and jumped on him, continuing the beating like a madman. He punched, and punched, and punched, his ichor-coated fists aimed at Aries' face. The only things in his mind right now was rage and a beaten Caitlyn. Aries' godly bone was the only thing that was keeping him alive. But it was just barely. Finally, after a minute of nothing but beating, Naruto stood up while breathing hard with his orange eyes looking down at Aries' pathetic form. Please, kill me. He heard Aries muttered weakly. He was barely alive now. Naruto willed a Godudama into his open palm, but at the last moment, Naruto decided against it. This god would never earn the honor of getting killed by his most powerful technique. Naruto returned the Godudama back to its position behind his back and turned around, walking away while sending a silent prayer to his father. Remember this day, Aries, because when you return, I will kill you again. Naruto said and disappeared in a flash of yellow just as a massive bolt shot out from the sky and struck Aries, leaving nothing but a pile of golden dust where he used to be. Olympus. Naruto reappeared inside the throne room of Olympus, with his features returned to normal. Dad, Naruto nodded his head to his father, who was holding the master bolt in his hand. Zeus only looked at Naruto with a sad expression on his face. He then turned to Hera, who was sobbing quietly with her face buried into her hands. Mom, Naruto muttered quietly. He knew that his mother loved her family more than anything in the world. Seeing their son try to kill each other before one of them killed by his own father would be the most painful thing a mother would have to come through. Naruto walked up to her and wrapped his arms around Hera's shoulders, smiling sadly at her. I'm sorry, Mom, he muttered. And no. You did the right thing, Naruto, Hera said through sobs. This family wouldn't be the same again without the hard decision. She wrapped her arms around Naruto and the blonde let her mother cried on his shoulder. He turned to Hestia, who was at her usual spot beside the main hearth, and instead of poking the fire rod into the fire like usual, the kindest goddess was staring into the fire with a sadness in her eyes while hugging her knees close to her chest. She was, after all, the goddess of family. Naruto was heading to Apollo's palace, the place Naruto believed Aphrodite took her to after teleporting her, and everyone away from the battlefield. He knew that Caitlyn's condition was a piece of cake to the god of medic, but he still wanted to make sure that Caitlyn would be alright. The two Olympians he was thinking about was standing in front of Apollo's palace, talking to each other, though Aphrodite got the expression of displeasure on her face. "Come on, date, one date," Apollo said with both of his hands clapped together in front of his chest. "Not interest, Apollo, not anymore." The goddess of love replied blankly before turning to the side when she heard footstep. Her eyes widened and a smile spread out on her face when she saw Naruto. "Naruto, hey Aphrodite." He smiled to his student before grinning to Apollo. "You too, Apollo. Yo Naruto, I heard what happened with you and Aries," Apollo said with a nervous smile on his face. "Make sure to remind me to never get on your bad side, will you?" The information about Aries was spreading across the mountain of gods like fire on hay. All around the world, all wars between nations stopped, and people started to reunite with each other with open arms. "I will." Naruto nodded his head with a small smile. "How is she?" "I cure all of the wounds, she only needs to get a good rest now." Naruto nodded his head. "Thank you, Apollo. Remind me to repay you later, alright?" The sun god grinned brightly. "Sure," Apollo said before opening the door for him. "You want to meet her?" "I'm not sure, go ahead." Aphrodite encouraged him with a smile. "After everything that happened, she will need you at her side." "Okay then." Naruto walked into Apollo's palace, but not before turning to Aphrodite. "See you later, Aphrodite." And he closed the doors behind him. "And you okay with that?" Apollo asked. "I thought you're after Naruto." "Of course I'm not okay with that, but I don't want to see him to be unhappy either." Aphrodite shook her head before walking away. "Hey," Naruto whispered softly after closing the door behind him, looking at Caitlyn, who was lying on the bed at the middle of the room with the blanket covered her body. All of the bruises and cuts on her face had disappeared, and Naruto doubted that the rest of her body wasn't the same, considering that Apollo was the best healer in the world. "Hey." There was a hint of tiredness in her voice when Caitlyn turned to him and greeted softly. Naruto walked to her and took off his shoes, climbing onto the bed and sat down next to Caitlyn. "How do you feel?" Naruto asked softly, using his fingers to move a few strands of her blonde hair away from her face. "I feel strange," Caitlyn said with a small smile. "I'm on Mount Olympus, inside Lord Apollo's place. I was rescued by the goddess of love herself after finding out that my boyfriend is the son of the king and queen of Olympus, Lord Zeus and Lady Hera. It is kind of hard to take in, I suppose." Naruto chuckled. "No. It all makes sense now," Caitlyn said softly. "Now I know why you're so interested in Greek mythology, your fighting skills, everything." She wanted to mention her nightmares as well, but decided against it because she didn't want Naruto to get more worry about her. "It's because you're the Prince of Olympus. I'm not sure if that title suited me at all." Naruto smiled before a frown made it to his face. "Kate, Aries, my brother, he didn't do anything to you, did he?" "He tried, but something about Lady Aphrodite cursing him stopped him from doing so." Caitlyn chuckled at the memories. "He tried to force himself on me, and the next thing that happened his crotch exploded. For real?" Naruto asked while cracking in laughter. Now he would need to repay Aphrodite for everything she had done to help him. "Naruto." Caitlyn then turned back to look at the ceiling and asked with a small tone. "Lady Aphrodite, she loves you, doesn't she?" "Caitlyn, I can see it in her eyes, the way she talked with you," Caitlyn said with a small tone. "Lady Aphrodite, the most beautiful goddess as well as love herself, who am I to try to compare with her? But you're still the girl I love, Kate," Naruto said with a smile, lowering his head down to plant a soft kiss on his girlfriend's forehead. "Don't worry about it. I promise to never leave you, not like that, Naruto," Caitlyn said, turning to him again. "I wasn't like I felt jealous at Aphrodite or anything, Naruto, quite opposite actually. The way she looked at you, she talked about you, as if she knew that you're the one who is mean to her. Aphrodite is the goddess of love, Naruto, she is love. She had been denied it from the day she stepped on Olympus, and do you think that she will be okay if her true love rejects her too? But I love you, Kate, don't say it like that." Caitlyn smiled, putting a hand on his cheek. "I don't know why, even if I barely know her I feel a strange connection with Lady Aphrodite. Maybe it was because we both love the same man," she smiled. "Or maybe because we both want you to feel happy. Don't reject her, Naruto." Naruto released a long sigh. "What about you, Kate?" "Oh, I would have to try harder then. I was literally outclassed by Lady Aphrodite in everything," Caitlyn said teasingly. It was mentioned in Greek mythology that gods could have multi-affairs, right? Hey, that is not something to joke about. Naruto whined playfully, making Caitlyn giggle. Naruto laid his body down next to his girlfriend, letting Caitlyn snuggle to his body as close as she could with her arms wrapped around his chest. That night, "Can I come in?" Naruto poked his head into the open doors of Aphrodite Palace, asking with a smile on his face. "Oh, come in, Naruto, I'm dying to see you here." A massive smile spread out on Aphrodite's face as she ran to the door and opened it for him. Naruto stepped in and brought up the boxes he was holding in his hands with a foxy grin. "Chocolate and champagne? Holy Zeus?" Aphrodite gasped in shock, grabbing the chocolate box that greatly resembled a handsome book, more like an encyclopedia. "Is this Dibov and Galiz's Le Livre?" Naruto grinned before asking. "Do I spell it right?" "Of course, and 2 years ago you didn't even know this world's best sweet." Aphrodite giggled. "How is Caitlyn?" "She is sleeping now. I moved her to my mother's palace to make sure Apollo won't try anything funny." "Fair enough." Aphrodite's expression then became seductive, as she leaned closer to his body. "So, you're here to give me the kiss I am waiting for, with your girlfriend literally 3 blocks away from us?" Naruto gulped slightly. After everything he went through with Aphrodite, who became an amazing fighter and actually came to help him save Caitlyn, he totally forgot who was this woman and what she was truly capable of. Especially after the talk with Caitlyn, Naruto now became more comfortable around Aphrodite, and not to mention the pink chipao she was wearing did nothing to hide her amazing figure. It was drawing a lot of attention toward her large breasts by opening widely at the front, the chipao also barely reaching down her mid-thighs, with the slit so high that the waistline of her skimpy thong was visible. "How naughty of you." Aphrodite flicked his nose and smiled seductively. I haven't. Thank you for coming to save Caitlyn." Naruto spoke up loudly, wanting to change the topic between them and buy him a few more seconds. "So thank you. I didn't know what would happen if you didn't come. Again, it is your aunt, not me." Aphrodite smiled at him, grabbing the box of champagne from his hand and put both chocolate and wine on the nearest table before grabbing his hand. "So, clearly he didn't have much time. Where do you want it?" Aphrodite asked hopefully. "Here? On the chair? Or on the bed?" "I think we were both comfortable if we sat down your bed," Naruto said wisely, and he was immediately pulled toward the place by Aphrodite. With a roughly pushed, Aphrodite pushed Naruto down the bed and climbed onto his lap, wrapping her arms around his neck and brought her body as close as possible to him, pressing her breast against his chest. "Remember, 1 kiss, no funny business," Naruto pointed out clearly. "Oh, 1 kiss is enough, Naruto." Aphrodite was a little nervous too, but she managed to put on a brave face before pressing her lips against his. All thoughts washed away from Naruto's mind the moment Aphrodite placed her mouth over his. For a moment, all he could do was enjoying the feel of her incredible soft lips as they pressed against his. His eyes shot wide open in shock when a strange feeling suddenly appeared inside of his heart. It felt so right, even after who knew how many times he kissed Caitlyn. The ones he shared with his girlfriend got nothing on what he was sharing with the goddess of love. It was just a simple kiss, lips to lips, mouth to mouth, and nothing sexual between them, and yet Naruto couldn't help but get lost in it. He fell onto his back, taking Aphrodite with him as they continued to kiss. Then it happened. Emotions. All kinds of positive emotions and thoughts bombarded into his mind. How happy it was to finally find your true love, how pleasant it felt to be kissing by your true love, how much he loved his true love. It took him several moments to realize that these were not his thoughts. They were the thoughts of the woman who was currently kissing him. "It's you!" Aphrodite suddenly pulled back and said with the happiest smile he had ever seen on her face. "It's you, Naruto!" Crystal-like tears fell out from her eyes as she looked at him with nothing but love. He was lost for words. Aphrodite was right. She was right from the beginning. They were destined to be with each other. "Love me," the goddess whispered and lowered her lips down Naruto's lips again. This time she held nothing back and kissed his as much love as she could give. Their clothes were removed faster than even their eyes could follow. "So, nothing happened last night?" Caitlyn asked, finally be able to get on her feet again. She was walking beside Naruto as he was giving her a tour around Olympus. Nothing at all," he said with a weak smile. "You sure? Because as far as I can tell from the way Lady Aphrodite was walking this morning, something definitely happened." His girlfriend glared slightly at him. "Please don't be angry at me." Naruto immediately got down to his knees in front of her and wrapped his arms around her waist. Hey, knock it off, people are staring, Caitlyn said while looking around. Of course I'm not angry with you, really? Yes, because I'm absolutely mad at you. She slapped him across the face and walked away. Hey Kate, wait, Kate, I can explain. Naruto quickly followed behind her, giving the best explanations he could think of in order to calm his girlfriend down. The two soon arrived at the throne room and Naruto, as the gentleman opened the door for his girlfriend, who huffed and walked in without looking at him. However, before Naruto could introduce his parent to Caitlyn, the heavy atmosphere inside the throne room suddenly caught his attention. Dad? What's wrong? Naruto asked the kind of Olympus, who was standing beside three unfamiliar old women. Naruto, I think we have a problem. Chapter 30. What do you mean we have a, Naruto? But he didn't get to finish his question because a certain goddess walked into the throne room and immediately threw herself at him, smashing her enormous boobs onto the backside of his head with her arms wrapped tightly around it, squealing out like a mad fangirl. Of course, this made the girl standing next to him cross her arms together and glared at them. Hey, Aphrodite. Naruto chuckled nervously as the goddess leaned her head against the top of his head, wearing a dazing smile on her face. Excuse me. Caitlyn cleared her throat loudly. I am standing. Caitlyn, you're all right. Aphrodite immediately let go off Naruto and jumped down to stand in front of Caitlyn, grabbing the young woman's hands while smiling at her. I'm so glad, haha, thank you, Lady Aphrodite. Caitlyn laughed nervously, kind of surprised by this friendliness from one of the most dangerous goddesses on Olympus, who also in love with the same man she was in love with. Naruto returned his attention back to his father and spoke up. Dad? Naruto, Zeus said with a somewhat nervous tone, which was something you could see every day, with his hands motioning to the three old women standing next to him. These are the fates. Immediately the cheerful atmosphere Aphrodite brought into the throne room was put down and replaced with a rather heavy one when the three women turned around to face Naruto. The fates, the ones who indirectly made his life a living hell, the ones who didn't allow him to be with his parent Clotho, the one who spins the thread of life, Lachesis, she who draws the lots and determines how long one lives, by measuring the thread of life, and Atropis, the inevitable, she who chose how someone dies by cutting the thread of life with her shears. These three women are the most powerful beings in the world, only after the creator of the universe Chaos. I am the present of the one who could decide when you're dead. Instead of cowering in fear or at least acting a little nervously, Naruto only glared at them with a small smirk on his face. He glanced to the side and saw Aphrodite standing next to him, with vinculum in her hand. Caitlyn was standing behind the both of them with fear planted on her face. He didn't know what happened, but clearly she saw something terrible when she looked at the three women. Naruto Uzumaki, Lachesis said with a deep, calm tone. You caused us so much trouble. Oh, do tell. Naruto requested calmly. Naruto, be a little more respectful, Zeus warned. No, Dad, you know clearly that these three are the reason why you had to live in guilty, Mom in sadness and I in loneliness for 17 years. 17 years, Dad. Naruto said, a thin blue aura flared around him. Should I afraid or respect them? No. A strong words for such a young man, a mortal no less. Atropis stated calmly before glancing to Aphrodite. I see that you finally found your destiny, one goddess. Aphrodite glared became hardened and Naruto could feel anger swelled within her. Of course Aphrodite would feel angry at them. If they didn't steal away her power of detecting her true love, Aphrodite wouldn't have to live in scornful from the other for nearly 3,000 years. Naruto, Aries' death is making the world go into a new orbit. Zeus spoke up. He is the god of war. Without him there is no war. Well? Isn't that a good thing? Naruto asked. You don't understand, do you, Naruto Uzumaki? Clotho spoke up. Humans have been killing each other for a long time. Humans, they seem to be hardwired towards violence. Evolution probably ensured that all the non-violent humans did not systematically survive to reproduce. Besides tendency to violence, humans naturally evolved the desire to protect kin, and were expected to fight to protect them. Kin developed into tribes, and then villages, and then eventually nations. For most of human history, fighting consisted of raiding for resources, and there are two that fundamentally mattered, food and sex. Populations can't grow without nourishment and reproduction. Naruto tilted his head to the side with a question mark on his head. It means that without war, humans can't reproduce themselves and soon they will all die. Everyone turned around and saw Artemis walking toward them with a calm expression on her face. Hello, Father, ladies Fates. She greeted the king of the gods and the Fates respectfully. Oh yeah, why didn't you say so? Naruto finally understood it, making everyone, save for Artemis and the Fates, to sweat drop. So you mean that we need war, so humanity can survive? A tick mark appeared on his forehead. What kind of logic is that? He had been fighting in a war and he knew the consequences of it, especially the loss of their loved ones. They're right, Naruto, Aphrodite said with a sigh. You're too young to fully understand this. Alright. Naruto raised his hands into the air. So you mean that we need a war god? Aren't Athena a war goddess herself? Because Athena is also the goddess of wisdom, it makes her a more justice war than Aries used to be, Zeus explained. What we need right now is a new god of war. All eyes then turned to Naruto. It didn't take him long to understand what they wanted. Wait, you mean I become the god of war? Naruto crossed both of his arms together, making an X. No way, I won't become a violent god. You're the one who defeated Aries, Atropos said. You're the most potential candidate for this position. This is not a matter you can refuse, Naruto Uzumaki, but I. Clotho pulled out a small string from the basket she was holding and said, It is about that girl standing behind you, isn't it? Naruto widened his eyes in surprise. Caitlyn Sharp will die at the age of 24, which means 5 years from this day. Naruto turned his head around and looked at Caitlyn in shock. The girl didn't look surprised at all. 5 years. That was all she got. Was this what she saw when she looked at the Fates? Her final moment? But you will have the power to lengthen and protect this string of life if you become a god, Naruto Uzumaki, Lakusa said. Caitlyn, Naruto said softly to his girlfriend, who then turned to him and smiled. Hey, don't worry about me, Naruto, Caitlyn muttered softly. Do what you want to do, Naruto. No matter what your decision is, I will support you. Fine then, Naruto turned back to the Fates and said with a loud voice, I will become a god! He would become the best kind of god. Naruto promised himself that. I in the presence of all Olympians' council, with minor gods and goddesses stood at the side, Naruto Uzumaki stepped forward. The blonde couldn't help but glance at the side where the main hearth was now located, where Caitlyn Sharp, his girlfriend, was standing next to the goddess of the family Hestia. He saw her smile at him and couldn't help but smile back himself. Ares' throne was removed, and with the hands of his brother, Hephaestus, it was replaced by a new throne, which would change after Naruto had become a god and his domains was decided. Naruto Uzumaki! Zeus bellowed powerfully, standing up from his throne with the Master Bolt in his hand. My son, the hero of the Fourth Great Shinobi War, the one who united elemental nations together, the Prince of Olympus, you had proved to be worthy of the position of an immortal, becoming an Olympian yourself, earning the most generous gift a king of God like myself could offer. Do you accept this gift? Yes, father, Naruto said with a strong and powerful voice. Any objection? Zeus thundered, looking around the throne room and saw no hand. Good, then I, as the king of Olympus, bestow this gift to you. Zeus raised his master bolt and shot a massive bolt into the sky, as he and the rest of the council stood from their thrones as they all began to chant in ancient Greek. Naruto began to glow with a bright golden light with a mixture of orange in it until the chanting stopped. A flash appeared behind him as the three Fates stood in the middle of the room. All hail Lord Naruto, Prince of Olympus, Olympian god of war, heroes, nature and loyalty, the Fates said in unison. As soon as they finished, Naruto's throne changed, became a more warlike throne with small leaves around it, and a 9-tails fox standing behind a kunai emblem planted on top of it. Naruto! Hera smiled softly at him. Welcome to the family, my son. Thanks, Mom, Naruto smiled. How do you feel, Naruto? Zeus asked. Like I can do anything. Naruto grinned. The last time he got the feeling like this, it was from receiving the sixth path Senjutsu from Rikudo Sennin. Who could have thought the feeling of becoming a god could be so familiar? Now, we need to decide what to do to Aries' children, as he no longer an Olympians. I will take care of them, Dad. Naruto spoke up. Just think of me as their patron or something like that. Are you sure, Naruto? Zeus asked with a concerned tone. They're not your children, I'm sure, Dad. Naruto nodded his head. Plus, I doubt that I will ever have a demigod anyway. This made Hera smile brightly at him. Good, what about your sacred animal? Fox, of course. Naruto cried out loudly, making Kurama, who was watching inside of his body, chuckled. All right, Zeus chuckled. You're also the god of nature. Maybe this will also be a solution for Pan, who is still missing. Zeus then looked around. Now, let's party to the fullest to welcome the Prince of Olympus. Epilogue. Naruto rolled to the side to avoid the celestial bronze blade being thrust towards his chest. Naruto pushed back with a grin using the flat board of his kunai. Who could have thought that he could be pushed into the defensive line? Naruto raised his weapon to block yet another strike but spun to his left instead and raised his tri-prongs kunai to the back of his opponent's neck. Yield? Naruto asked sternly. His opponent sighed. Fine, Naruto, you win. For real? Naruto asked. As far as he could tell, his opponent was absolutely stubborn. It would take more than that to make Aphrodite yield. The goddess' eyes narrowed as she spun and kicked Naruto's legs out from under him. Naruto landed roughly on his back, eliciting a loud groan from the immortal demigod. That was cheap. Naruto shouted and rolled to the side to avoid Aphrodite. Blade. Aphrodite replied with an amused smirk when Naruto stood up. I don't play fair, remember? She spun around and kicked Naruto, who easily stopped her by grabbing her ankle. Because of the teacher? Naruto asked teasingly. Oh yes. The love goddess grinned. Because of the teacher. And she charged at her lover once again. Don't you think so, Kurama? The love goddess asked the gigantic nine-tails fox who was lying on the ground with nymphs and naiads brushing his tails and his fur beside them, a satisfied expression on his face. Sure, Kurama replied. You turn out to be more like the brat than I thought. Damn right annoying. I'm not annoying. Naruto defended himself. Right, Kate? Naruto asked his mortal lover, who was leaning her back against Kurama's right arm, trying to write a song herself. Oh, of course not, Caitlyn said with a smile. But maybe a little, haha, see? Kurama roared out in laughter. His life as a god couldn't get any better than this. Sure, he was busy all day with the duties of the god of war, heroes, nature and loyalty. But he tried to spend most of his free times around his lovers, both mortal and immortal. Naruto could never think that Aphrodite and Caitlyn could get along with each other all too well, as they both got no problem in sharing the man they loved. His mother, of course, didn't feel happy about this. His father, however, supported Naruto with a proud smile on his face. The gods were very jealous at him, which, Naruto couldn't blame them at all. He didn't get to become a Hokage, but become a god was close enough.